significantly larger than anything we've done. But to your point, there are a couple things that we've already started. The strategy and integration team was very much the foundation of us understanding the need to really invest in our people, train our people well, build a culture that could scale and sustain itself. We're far from accomplishing that. I don't want to mislead anybody, but that is the sort of ahead of the gate thinking around what are we going to do about human capital. We've been having a lot of conversations, especially with Julie DeRose and the housing team, about the way we deliver supportive services is going to have to look different, because there just aren't enough human beings, to be able to deliver services in the same way that we do now. So the challenge for us is how do we take what we've learned, how do we take the multidisciplinary, site-based, field-based teams, and some of which are place-based, and how do we reconfigure those so that we can maximize, efficiency. So we're already having those conversations now in anticipation that, when we get to, project 20 and 25, and we're doing 40, a year, we have to be a well-oiled machine. I mean, we don't have room for, figuring it out that every new development is a one-off. We've got to be, 5 steps ahead of ourselves. So I just want to acknowledge that I appreciate you thinking about that, and also assure you that we're also thinking about that a lot and trying to figure out what is it going to look like. We're going to be a different organization from the service delivery perspective, no doubt, absolutely.
Does anybody else have anything that they would like to say? Questions, comments?
Let's get on with it.
Let's go for
All right,
let's
party
go for the
people.
question. Let's do it.
All right. So,
I'm going to move approval of the strategic plan.
can I make a small addendum?
Sure.
That under community advocates, we have a 4th line that says that Emeritus Council,
Okay,
to acknowledge the Emeritus Council.
that's fine. As
Okay.
amended, I move approval of the strategic plan.
Okay. Second. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Yay. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried! Woohoo! Yay!
Should have brought champagne.
I know, that was
No,
exciting.
then that usually leads to
I know.
you have to go back and do it again.
Yeah, it only takes 3 years.
Go to the bathroom.
Okay, so there is no finance report, so I just put that in there for giggles.
I took it out for giggles.
But it's still in there.
No, we're going from 3 to 6.
Not on my
Not on the one you
copy.
circulated.
Oh, okay, sorry. I'm looking at an old copy for giggles. What's the next on your
Just
agenda?
development and adjourn.
Development and adjourn.
Oh, no, we have old business and
We
new
have new
business.
business, yeah.
But development. Do you have anything for development?
Well,
We-
you guys kind of heard earlier. The 15 months actually started 19 or 18 days ago. So,
Let's get moving.
Question, how are we going to raise $8 million?
15 million.
It's 8 incremental. It's 8 incremental.
$8 million in private funds in 15 months.
Additional.
Additional.
In
On top of
addition to
what?
the 7.
The 7 we expect to raise from our normal existing channels.
So we're calling it 15 by 15, or 15 by 14 in 12 days.
15 and 15 months.
right. So, Andrea and I were looking at, and I should say, I told Andrea that she didn't have to be here because I, like Bart, wasn't thinking about this like a real board meeting, and I was like, no, we're just talking about the strategic plan, and you can be there, sure, but there won't be development stuff. And then Sarah was like, so who's doing the development report? And I was like,
It's possible that the only person who was thinking about this as a regular board meeting was me.
yeah, I think so.
I'm really sorry about that, guys, but since we're here already.
So I just want to say the reason Andrea isn't here is because I told her not to be here, and then
Okay.
yesterday I was like, or you could come. she asked me to remind everybody, the roundtable is next week. So if you've RSVP'd for that, we'll see you there. And next Thursday, the 25th. We were looking at, okay, so if we look at some annual operating increases that some of the staff are looking at already, significant in events and annual fund, and we plug in a 15% increase on major gifts and foundations for next fiscal year, that leaves $9 million that we would need to find. So that's, I mean, that's not nothing, right? But it's, if everybody does the base minimum of what we did this current year up to April, and we factor in these projected increases, it leaves $9 million. And so that's the question of where's this extra $9 million coming from? It's on an extra $15 million because we're going to keep writing the grant proposals that we write. We're going to keep working the annual major donors that we do. Maybe we get some increases from them, but that's continued operations, right? So
What's it going?
we could add 9 fundraisers to the board structure who are here to raise $1 million. And I'm interested in ideas that the rest of you have. It's not going to come from a bunch of little events, you know, that's not the way to generate these big gifts. It's going to come from significant individual relationship conversations with somebody who says, I believe that this can be solved and I want to be part of it. And as you all know, because we've been talking about this since 2010, that's when I got here. Those relationships do not usually come through staff connections. We find donors who can move up. We find donors who have been annual fund donors, and you know, we never put the right thing in front of them, and now they become major donors. We find the bequest, but it's in peer-to-peer relationships, and there's a few really good leads that I should say, I'm sorry, Gary, that was really rude of me to say that nobody's doing anything differently, because you have been doing things differently. And there are some connections that Gary's actively working on with Melinda and Andrea that are bigger potential than we've worked on before. I'm sorry. So that's what we have ahead of us. And, you know, the other thing that we always talk about is summer is a tough time for fundraising. You know?
We got to lay the foundation, and you got to keep us moving.
Yeah, I mean,
and
I think that the answer is always it's in the reach, it's in the effort, and if we start making the efforts and making the asks and making the connections and talking about it and talking about it and talking about it everywhere we go, it will happen. We just need to keep doing the work.
as I've told you, I'm going to go to my friend who runs the Booth Foundation, but now we're ready. Well, we're not quite ready, but we got the plan, and
What do we need to do to get ready? We've got the plan. We're ready. Let's go.
I mean, I got a silly question. Is there any, I'm sure there's lots of reasons why, but can any of these HH or HHH funds be diverted just to us? Like, I'm sure there's strict guidelines.
yes, HHH, no.
Not
So-
you're talking about solely to us?
Well, I'm saying, I mean, could the argument be made that since they're not spending any of the money because they can't figure out how to spend it,
Well, the
They spent
HHH,
all the money.
the HHH money they had no problem spending, and the H monies they're spending too.
oh, really?
You just may not agree with how they're spending it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Money doesn't sit around.
They're in year 3 of Measure H, and it's already oversubscribed.
Yeah.
They're out of money after the Innovation Challenge
Yeah.
money's
So we've
allocated.
got one more round of
There was a
funding.
slow start in year 1 on Measure H, but they have more than made up for it.
Yeah.
But at $550,000 a unit, which is what their last
can't grab
round
any
was,
of
it
that.
doesn't go as far
But
as
they've
you think.
carved out $120 million of HHH funds for innovative developers like us with the goal of building 1,000 units over 2 years. And that RFP is coming out at the end of March, according to the government.
Except
Next year.
the
I
mayor
get
and the
that we're
council
in-
are having a fight
yeah.
over who's going to run.
So we will be going for that money. I mean, whatever counts, right?
Yeah.
But it's not going to solve the problem. But
No,
that's
but,
also
but,
not the people concerned.
but here's where I see HHH could again help put a floor under the cell for other people, because if we are able at Flyaway to secure some of that HHH money, that then puts us in a position to go to people and say, we've got the money from the city, we're raising the money privately to do 10 developments in the next 24 months. Here's and to prove again that we're starting to make a big difference. That would be, those 10 developments would be 500 people, 1,000 people. We'll see what the numbers work out in less than 24 months. It's time to come in and help us make this all work, so we can then start doing more. So I think HHH can help again increase the momentum and push behind what we're doing here. And H dollars, I think to some extent, H dollars are what support the services that, as Flyaway and other developers grow, it's the H dollars that are going to the agency in one form or another through DHS or otherwise that are supporting the growth and funding available for services. So I think it is happening, just not quite as directly as you posited it.
But if I can take it back to private fundraising, that growth is part of the reason that we're feeling the stretch for the need for private fundraising. Because of what we talk about all the time was these months and months of receivables. It's not the answer, just more public money. That's not gonna.
No,
allow us to take
we need to get the mix right and fill the hole to get the infrastructure in place to move to the next step.
So is the sell that because we're building additional housing, we need the money to support the housing that we're building? Is that how we're just going to sell this?
Support the services.
Support the
So
services
if
for the
we-
new housing that's being built?
if
Because
we
we've never really
look at
sold it that way before,
So if we
have
look,
we?
no, if we look at the pillars, I'm going to give you my little 5-second thing that I give to people that I'm talking to about.
The elevator speed?
Yeah.
Okay.
We do 3 pillars. We do outreach and engagement, we do transitional housing, we do permanent housing. We believe, more or less, the size of these first 2 pillars are right sized. They will become much more efficient when we have a 3rd pillar in place. We can't do the 3rd pillar without the foundation, which is the housing. And once we have the housing in place and have some place to put people, we can move people through the system efficiently. The first 2 pillars don't need to grow all that much. It's the 3rd pillar, and it's going to need to double and double again. And that's where the growth comes
What are
from.
the first 2 pillars again?
Outreach,
Outreach and
engagement,
engagement and transitional housing.
getting people
I
from
can write it down for you.
I'll test you tomorrow. I'll send you a quiz.
But that's exactly the right way to think about it, because if you look at it from a systems standpoint, the problem we have is the flow-through.
Yeah.
There's no flow-through, or there's limited flow-through, because you don't have an exit strategy on the back end. The exit strategy is housing. And in our case, it's permanent supportive housing, so it's not just housing, it's housing with services. And that is where the emphasis is. And, a lot of the H money was front-loaded on building out, there's E6 teams, there's lots of teams doing outreach, which is great. But frankly, what we're doing is we're building elegant waiting lists
Right,
for
that's
people.
right.
We're engaging people, but there's no next for them, because all of the interim, bridge, transitional, whatever you want to call them, beds are filling up, and there's no place or very limited places for people to go on the back end. And I think that is what we're trying to educate these larger donors, is that if you help us do this, we don't need to invest any more on the front end or the middle of the system. They are, in fact, right-sized now, and it's interesting in talking to some of the policymakers and the electeds and their staff. I was having a conversation with Sheila Kuehl's deputy last week, and we were on a conference call, and she said, it was interesting because it was her and MRT's homeless deputy, and Molly, Sheila's deputy, said, Well, I think that the that the interim and bridge housing